Shalom, everyone, and welcome. I'm Gisele Pintchuk. I'm the Life and Legacy Director at the Jewish Federation of Sarasota-Manatee. And today I have my colleague, Jessi Sheslow. She's our Community Relations Director. Although our offices are closed, our Federation team has been working really hard in creating innovative programs and events to keep you connected and engaged and close to us during this time. So we thank you for being letting us be a part of your day today by joining this presentation. In the meantime, I want to thank you for being here and let you know that this presentation is being recorded. You're all muted to cut down on the background noise, but feel free to chat with us and ask questions throughout the presentation by using your chat box. And after the presentation, we're going to have a Q&A, so you can have questions answered at any time during this presentation. Also, a little quick of domestic affairs. In order for us to know that you are here, if you are comfortable with Zoom, I would ask you that you change your screen name to your first and last name, so we know who you are. Some of the screen names are just numbers or nicknames, and would love to know that you are here. If you're comfortable, you go on your screen on the 3 dotted line that is, click on that screen and says rename. Type in your first name and your last name. So shortly, you're gonna meet David Sussman, who will take us on a very special tour of our homeland. And after the tour, we'll have the Q&A. For now, please meet my colleague, Jessi Sheslow. She's gonna share with you a few words of what's happening here at our Federation. Thank you. Jessi?
Thank you, Gisele. As Gisele mentioned, my name is Jessi Sheslow. I am the Director of Community Relations at the Jewish Federation of Sarasota-Manatee. The Heller CRC is proud to partner on this presentation of an incredible tour of Israel with David Sussman. The Heller Community Relations Committee's mission is to represent the Sarasota-Manatee Jewish community, Israel, and Jews throughout the world to the general community, and to establish collaborative relationships with other ethnic, racial, civic, and religious groups. The CRC educates and advocates on important issues, seeking consensus with a commitment to Jewish values. Israel is at the heart of what we do and advocate for. As we've transitioned to a more virtual life, the Heller CRC has been providing meaningful and educational webinars that fulfill our mission. Please mark your calendars for some of our upcoming events. This Thursday, June 4th at 10 a.m., our special guest, Deputy Consul General of Israel to Miami, Casa Benasai Harbor, will present Israeli Society in the Era of Coronavirus. And on July 10th at 10:30, Carly Pildis will join us to discuss intergenerational conversations about Zionism. Make sure you watch your inboxes for our Federation e-blasts to get more information about how to register. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope you enjoy this virtual tour.
Thank you so much, Jessi. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to David Sussman. He's a graduate of the Archaeological Seminars in Jerusalem and a licensed tour guide authorized by the Israel Ministry of Tourism. He served as an IDF combat unit during the Second Lebanon War. After his service, he founded DSI Tours. Through his company, he has organized hundreds of memorable trips for couples, small families, large generational family trips, bar and bar mitzvah, community trips, synagogues, and organizations around the world. Right now, not doing too many tours, he's here with us to take us there with him. So David, it's a pleasure to have you here from Israel. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Gisele, and thank you everybody else for tuning in. I very much appreciate it. Just a quick question, am I the big screen for everybody? Thumbs up. Am I coming up on the big screen? Yeah? Okay, wonderful. For some reason I have Gisele. Hey, Gisele. It's fine. I feel like I'm talking to you. So it's good to be back here in Sarasota, even though it's virtual. I don't know if any of you attended my talk that I gave there back in January, back when times were safe for us all to travel internationally and probably really within the states themselves. So it's good to be back, to see all of your beautiful faces, your smiling faces, your radiant faces, your faces that exude the expression that, thank God, I have retired to one of the most beautiful places in the world. I love the west coast of Florida. My mother lives in Fort Myers, and it's a beautiful place to be, although I will have to say I'm a bit partial to where I live. Not only do I live in one of the most beautiful lands, being Eretz Yisrael, being the land of Israel, but I live probably in one of the most beautiful areas and regions of Israel as well, known as Gush Etzion. I live in a particular, I guess you'd call it a city, it's a municipality, known as Efrat. It's just south of Jerusalem, just south of Bethlehem, and just about 20 minutes north of another holy city here in Israel, the city of Hebron. And I'm very happy to have this opportunity to speak to you all and to share a little bit about Israel, part of Israel that it is quite likely that many of you are not that familiar with, even if you've been here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, or even countless times, as it's somewhat off the beaten track. Before I get into the crux of the Torah and to take you to these beautiful places, I want to do a little bit of a background, because I feel that it's important that as we approach these beautiful places that we do have a bit of a reverence to the 2,000-year ordeal that we had to go through in order to throw off literally the yoke of foreign oppression here in our lands. All of us, all of our families, originated here in Eretz Yisrael, and we do not know when we left. We do not know when our families were forced out. It may have been during the Roman period. It may have been after the Bar Kokhba revolt. It may have been during the Crusader period or during the various Arab empires. But what we do know is that our families lived here at one time and that we were sent into an exile. However, there are many Jews who live here in Israel whose families never left. And there was always pockets of Jews waiting here for their brothers and sisters to return home. So when I talk about foreign oppression, I'm talking about the oppression that maybe some of us aren't necessarily familiar with, because when we think of oppression, we think of anti-Semitism in our host countries in which we ended up. However, for 2,000 years, our brothers and sisters were oppressed in our own land under foreign empires until we were able to throw off the yoke of foreign oppression. So let me just take you on a quick ride. It's only going to be about 5 minutes, but a quick ride through the 2,000 years of that foreign oppression. Can you guys see my screen? Giselle, you're the only one I see, so give me a thumbs up. Yeah, wonderful. You can see my logo right there. You can see at the bottom, David Sussman, Israel Tours. I'm going to send a letter to Giselle. If anybody wants more Israel content, you'll be able to go to my website. I had a television show. I have over 100 episodes, 50 of them, which are a half hour long, that was aired on a cable network known as Daystar. It's a Christian network. It's the largest Christian network in the world, but it's not Christian-centric, it's Israel-centric, and I'm sure everybody across the board will appreciate it. So I'm gonna send a letter with all that type of information. But we're gonna start off looking at this map over here, and it's really the globe laid out flat. And you can't even see Israel, with the exception that it's there in red and it's got its own little bubble that enlarges the land in red as well, so that we get a better idea of what it looks like. However, when you really look at Israel and you look at the globe and you look at all of the nations around the world, you can see how small we really are. You cannot miss North America, South America. You can't miss the African nations and Australia, and obviously the Russia, I almost said Soviet Union, and Russia and China. These are massive, massive countries and nations, and yet Israel is so small, and yet we're the focal point of the world, it appears to be. And this is not a new thing. This is something that has existed for many, 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 many millennia, thousands of years. This is a map that was drawn up in the 16th century, in the 1500s. You can see Europe, Asia, and Africa. And in the middle of that beautiful flower, you see Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, the land of Israel. Israel is a conduit. It is a connection point between these three continents, which for the most part was the known world at that time. And not only were we the physical center of the world, we're also the spiritual center of the world. And we know that Jerusalem is the spiritual center of the world, the place where the spiritual Big Bang takes place, right? We all believe in the physical Big Bang. I think it's an amazing proof of the Bible, right? Something came from nothing. We also have a spiritual Big Bang that takes place every minute from Jerusalem, the connection point between everything metaphysical and everything spiritual. Unfortunately, that was destroyed in the year 70 CE by the Romans. In fact, if you come to Jerusalem, you can still see the ruins of the destruction, and not only see the ruins of the destruction, but look at the picture in front of you right now. In the lower right-hand corner, you will see stones that are still charred, that are still blackened by the fires that raged in Jerusalem, that literally brought down the entire Temple Mount. You know, when we get married, we break a glass under the chuppah and everybody screams, Mazel Tov. Really, it's that moment that we're supposed to have our happiness diminished ever so slightly, to remember that the temple is destroyed in Jerusalem and that we want to rebuild it through our mitzvot. And so my wife and I took our wedding pictures right where you can see that lovely, I think it's a lady with the blue shirt on, walking past those stones, in order to remind us every day when we look at our pictures that we have a job and a mission to do. What did the Romans do with all of the spoils of war, the golden menorah, the treasures? Well, they built an edifice known as the Colosseum. And the Colosseum was built with Jewish wealth, with Jewish money that was stolen from us, but also with Jewish slaves, the masons who built the Temple Mount. And what did they do in the Colosseum? They had gladiator fights. They turned what is known as a house of prayer for all nations, as well as a Beit Shalom, a house of peace, a place to bring harmony between the nations together. Please, God, don't we need that so much today, even amongst ourselves, as we can see what is happening today in the news. And yet they destroyed that house of peace, a house of gathering for all nations. They built a Colosseum, which was a house of death. And yet so many people go to Rome before they come to Yerushalayim and to Israel. They'd rather look at a building which was honored death than a building that honored harmony. And this reigned in the Roman Empire, which ruled the land of Israel for about 300 and some odd years, until the Byzantine Empire stepped up. This was the first Christian empire who ruled the land of Israel. I love it right at the top. You can see a rise and fall, right? The rise and the fall of the Byzantine Empire, because all of them have fallen to the wayside. Then we had the early Arab period, and I call it the early Arab period because they were always fighting one another, constantly at arms against one another. That to list all of the different empires, all of the different dynasties, and all of the different kingdoms who ruled the land of Israel, it would be too long. So we just call it the early Arab empires. And we can see even today that they're still fighting one another. Until the bloodthirsty crusaders came in and they wreaked hell upon the land of Israel. They killed Muslims and Christians alike. And this happened twice because they were defeated once by Salah ad-Din, an Arab Kurdish, right? We hear the Kurds in the news today. The Kurds who were being oppressed in Iraq and by Turkey and Iran used to be the major player, right? The leader of the Arab world for a period of time. And they defeated the Crusaders, but the Crusaders came back until the Mamluks came and finally did away with the Crusaders. And then you have the Mamluk period for about 300 years. You have the Ottoman Empire. That's the Turkish Empire. Again, all throughout these periods of time, Jews living in the land of Israel, in our homeland, are being oppressed and treated as second-class citizens. And then you have the British Mandate. And you can see the little sign there on the right. It says Palestine. We're not going to get into the name of Palestine right now, but I will send again to Gisele my links. I have a wonderful 6-minute video tutorial on the name Palestine, the etymology of it all, when it was introduced, and why it lingered for so long here in the land of Israel. However, this oppression will end, and it begins in the late 19th century. It only comes to fruition in the 20th century in 1948, but it begins with this man right here, Theodor Herzl, the godfather of modern political Zionism. He writes a book called Alte Neuland, the Old New Land, that inspires Jews from around the world to finally head back to the land of Israel. And it's not that they really needed the inspiration, but maybe a little bit of a nudge. But it wasn't only that. It was also, look at the ship behind them. That's a steam-powered ship. The steam-powered engine changed the world. The Industrial Revolution allowed people to travel much quicker and much safer than previously. So Jews from around the world came home to Israel. Some of them did not have boats or trains, and some of them had to walk. And here you can see a family who was walking across the desert from Yemen. And if you don't know where Yemen is at the southern border of the Arabian Peninsula. And look at their feet. Some of them are even barefoot. Holding in their arm, the gentleman in the middle, a Sefer Torah. I can only imagine what it was like for these Yemenite Jews, and here you can see a large Yemenite Jewish family, coming into contact for the first time with an Ashkenazi Jewish family. And why am I laughing at this? Because I have to assume that those Yemenite Jews must have taken off their sunglasses and looked to themselves and said, "You've got to be kidding me. There are white Jews in this world? No way. We have been separated for so long that we forgot that we are a nation of people from 12 different tribes and 12 different character traits, both spiritually and physically. But all 12 tribes, all those who returned to the land of Israel, had one thing in mind: to take the sand, to take the desert, to take this what appeared to be a wasteland, to add that magical ingredient, the Jewish people, and to turn it into a mecca of culture, of production, of ingenuity, of innovation. And yes, my friends, the picture you see right here is this right here. The only difference between these two pictures is 100 years and Jewish persistence to build something where there was nothing. That's a picture of Tel Aviv in 1909 when 66 families came together. They drew lots, and eventually Tel Aviv was born. And all of this so that in 1948, David Ben-Gurion could announce in front of the nations that Israel will be a Jewish state here in our ancestral homeland. Thank the good Lord. What I want to do today is I want to take you to 3 unique places. I want to take you to Rosh Hanikra. I have to assume some of you who have been here more than once have probably been to Rosh Hanikra. It's not on the top of my list on my itineraries that I send out to families unless they insist, because at the end of the day, we only have 10 days. And to go to Rosh Hanikra is taking us out an hour this way, an hour that way. But it is one of the most beautiful places in Israel, one of the most beautiful places in the entire world. And if you're a nature buff and that's what you want, well, then guess what? We're going to Rosh Hanikra when you come here to Israel. It's located in the most northwestern part of Israel. It connects to the Mediterranean Sea, the Great Sea, and it borders on Lebanon. It stands beautifully upon the Achziv Nature Reserve, which is the northern coastline of Israel that we're looking at right there. That is the largest nature reserve in all of Israel. Those are all wild beaches. You will not find latrines, you will not find coffee shops, you will not find anything built up upon those beaches. These are wild, wild beaches, but it is beautiful. So if you got the adventure spirit, it's worthwhile going there. And I'm actually going to show you a short video of how to appreciate that area to its finest and still not work up too much of a sweat. Here you can see the kibbutz called Rosh Hanikra. It sits right at the base of the mountain range. You can see behind it. That mountain range is the border. At the very, very top, you actually have a security barrier similar to that we have with Jordan and Syria and Egypt, and of course, the disputed territories. And that is the border of Lebanon, okay? That border of Lebanon, you can see the military installation over there to the right-hand side. That hill, though, is the only part of Israel where you do not have a coastline of sand, or at least sand that's meeting some sandstone, some rock, like you'd see on the coastal, the shoreline that we saw in the picture just before, what we're looking at right there. This mountain actually reaches into and grabs hold of the Mediterranean Sea. So there is no bypass. There's no way around that. And we have to remember that the famous ancient highway known as the Via Maris, the way of the sea, which connected Egypt with the north, had to pass over this ridge, which means when they arrived to Rosh Hanikra, they would have to ascend and then descend. Well, it would be, oh, look at this beautiful picture, huh? I tell people all the time that in Israel, you have something from everywhere. You have the White Cliffs of Dover in England. They are massive, they are huge, but we also have White Cliffs. We have the White Cliffs of Rosh Hanikra. And we also have tall mountains like you have in Switzerland and the Hermon. We only have one, but that one is really beautiful. Well, in 333 BCE, for those of you who don't know your world history, because this was a world act that took place, or your Israeli history, because Israel, of course, was affected by it, you had a man by the name of Alexander the Great who carved out stairs in order to climb over and to bring all of his warships, right? What were we talking about? Elephants, right? And to bring in all of his weapons and soldiers. He had chiseled out from the mountain all of these stairs, but those stairs, only a few of them remain because they were destroyed later on after World War I. After World War I, the Ottoman Empire had lost to the British and also lost to the French. And here we are looking at a map of the British Mandate and the French Mandate. The British Mandate is in red, and the green is the French Mandate. And look at the map right there. You can see where it says Palestine. I mean, I take slight offense to that, but you can see where it says Palestine over there. And where the green and where the red meet, well, that is Rosh Hanikra. Now, the French and the British at this time were getting along just fine. And the British said to the French, we need to bring supplies into the British Mandate all the way down to Egypt. And what they did was, instead of going up and over that mountain range that goes into the sea, they built a tunnel that went through the mountain and built the train tracks. You guys can hear my kids in the background. They just came home from a birthday party. This is the same tunnel that you're looking at over here, or just on the other, like there's a little bridge on the other side. But this is the tunnel. You can still see the train tracks. I'm so sorry that that picture is so small. I'm having a problem zooming into it, but you can see the train tracks over there. At the end of that tunnel, if you can make that out, at the end of that tunnel, you have a white wall that's been turned into a movie screen that they have a projector and they give the history over Rosh Hanikra. But if you were to continue past that, if you would blow up that tunnel, you would go into Lebanon. Now, this train track that was built by the British in order to bring military supplies into the land of Israel was seen as an obstacle for the Halmach, right? The early or the elite unit of the Haganah, the early IDF, pre-state IDF, Israeli Defense Forces. And so they had what was known as the Night of the Bridges. Officers from the Palmach blew up bridges on that railroad track, including a bridge connecting this tunnel and that tunnel. You can see the bridge right there. It's a new bridge, but they blew up that bridge in order to stop the supplies from coming into Israel. And of course, when you come here with a group, here's a group that I guided. You come right up there, and there's a beautiful sign where you can see Beirut and Jerusalem. There is also a Where did that picture go? I guess I deleted it. Hold on, is this it? No. So there is also like a checkpoint. You can actually see the border, and you can see where the military are standing position against any intrusion from Lebanon. But at this point, you're closer to Beirut than you are to Yerushalayim, 120 miles to Jerusalem, and only about 68 miles to Beirut. A lot of people, when they visit Israel, it's so beautiful and so Western that they forget what neighborhood they are really in. Well, to go down to the famous part of the Rosh Hanikra, the grottos that you can see there, the beautiful grottos, you have to take the steepest cable car in the world. And the angle is about 60% going down. It's a little nerve-wracking at first, but it's a very, very quick ride. Down to the bottom, where you can hike and go through the grottos and admire its stunning beauty. And just very quickly, how these grottos were formed is there was tiny fissures in the rock, and the salt water crashing upon those fissures into it over millions and millions and millions and millions of years formed some of the most spectacular, beautiful, epic grottos that you can see. And sometimes you'll even see sea turtles and fish swimming in there. And it really is a great, great view. And one way of enjoying it, though, is on a speedboat. And I said I was going to share a quick video, and that is what I'm going to do. Let me just adjust my screen sharing here. And what I'm going to do, this is actually from one of the episodes from my TV show, Land of the Bible, that you guys can watch on my website, David Sussman Israel Tours.
One of the most popular attractions to do in and around Akko is located just slightly to the north of the city along the coastline in the country's largest sea reserve. It's called Trek Yam, and they offer a wide selection of exciting things to do. But their most popular activity is the tornado boat, which brings you out into the sea, traveling at incredibly high speeds, bouncing along the waves and getting totally wet. They go up north towards Rosh Hanikra, as well as having special permits to enter a closed military zone that goes along the border of Lebanon.
You can see
or
the Navy
if you'd
boat
like,
there.
you could travel south to the city of Akko and get incredible views of the old city walls from the sea. They also offer snorkeling on 5 protected islands that humans aren't allowed to enter. And as a result, many wild animals have begun to call it their home. And on any given day, you'll be able to see sea turtles swimming around there, wild birds, and on a lucky day, you'll even see sea lions. All in all, Trek Yam is a fantastic attraction. In fact, you can easily spend the entire afternoon here. If you get hungry, they can provide lunch or dinner right here on the beach. Let's now cruise up north and visit Rosh Hanikra.
So we're just going to watch this too. It's going to be a little bit of a review of everything I just said, but
the coast of the
you're going to have some
Mediterranean.
different
Brings
views
us
of the
to the most
actual
northwestern
grottos.
point in the state of Israel along the border of Lebanon.
That upper part is Lebanon.
It's also the site of one of the most beautiful places in all of Israel called Rosh Hanikra. You can access this nature reserve using the world's steepest cable car from the parking lot above to the grottos below. The grottos here were formed over the course of millions of years, beginning with tectonic movements that formed the latter ridge anticline. At the same time, cracks were created in the rock, which were eroded by rain. And then the lapping of the sea against its soft chalk face eroded them even further, forming some of the most spectacular grottos in the entire world. They are continuously eroding, roughly about a meter every 1,000 years. Let's now go explore these beautiful grottos.
So I'm going to continue now with the slideshow. Let me just fix this. Hold on one second here. Just going to adjust my screen sharing. And we are going to head from the north of Israel almost down to the most southern tip of Israel to a place called Park Timna, which is only about 20 minutes north of Eilat. And as you enter this most majestic and beautiful place, one of my favorite places really in Israel, you are immediately greeted by Egyptian gods and goddesses, or statues of gods and goddesses, and hieroglyphics, because Timna Park is where Egypt had some of its most resourceful copper mines. However, in addition to learning the history of copper, because the copper period begins here in Israel, here in Timna Park. I'll explain a little bit of how that began. You also have some of the most stunning scenic beauties. Just look at some of these canyons, these seeks that you can walk through with the beautiful colored sandstone. A lot of people, you come to Israel, there's so much to do in Israel. There's so much history. There's so much spirituality and inspiration. There's so much yummy, delicious food. There's the great beaches. There's city. There's culture. There's the Philharmonic, everything that you can want. But there's also some really gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous nature. This is a full moon. It's just a wonderful picture. We're going to have a full moon. We always know when the full moon's here in Israel because it's the 15th of every Jewish month. We have the Jewish calendar and the Gregorian calendar. And here in Israel, we follow both. And this Thursday, we have a full moon. It's the 15th of Sivan, the month of Sivan. And I'll be making a video. I'm going with about 20 guys from neighborhood. I put together a hike from Gush Etzion, where we are, all the way to the Dead Sea. It's about a 7-hour hike. But we came here in order to learn about the copper period. And what you're looking at right there, yes, I took the picture from Shutterstock. I was looking for a nice picture of some copper. And but that is copper found in Timna. That green stone is the copper ore. Now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for 1 second. You guys all with me? Thumbs up? All right, cool. Thanks, Joseph. So the copper period. I just want you to imagine, ancient man, no copper. You don't know what copper is, so how do you know what you're looking for? Well, what they were looking for, as we're still looking for the same thing, is something beautiful in order to give to our wives and to our loved ones. And that green stone looked like something beautiful. So really, early man during the Chalcolithic period, we're talking 6,500 years ago, were collecting that green stone and making jewelry out of it in order to give it as a present. Well, these miners who went there would have these fires at night, and they would take some of these green stones and they would throw it into the fire, and it would make a spark. Sparks would come up like fireworks. And when they went back in the morning, they started to notice that there was a little bit of a shimmery stone in there, polished it up a little bit, and guess what? They got something even more beautiful than the green stone. They had something shiny and gold looking. And this began the Chalcolithic period. This began the Copper Age, roughly 4,500 BCE. But fast forward, and thousands of years later, they're going to refine. We're talking almost 3,000 years later, about 1,500 BCE. Yeah, 3,000 years. They are going to refine this method of smelting the copper ore, and they're going to dig channels through. Oh, wait, hold on a second. I'm so sorry. You guys cannot see that. Here I am thinking I'm sharing my screen, and I'm not. Hold on 1 second. I'm so sorry. Where am I? Share screen. There we go. There's the copper I was talking about. So I hope you guys had that before as well. I don't know how long you guys haven't been able to see anything. So what do? They carved into the mountaintop looking for veins of copper, and they had an intricate system. I mean, there's miles worth of this, and you can explore with your kids, burn your flashlight, and go through these copper mines. It is really amazing. And then they would bring over these baskets of all of this copper, and they would bring it to the smelting station. And you can see a friend of mine here standing on top of bellows in which, they would walk upon, they would raise it up, walk upon, forcing all of that oxygen into the oven, which is that structure in front. They would bring the powdered ore, they would grind it up, right? They would grind all the stone up, so it was a powder, as much copper ore as possible, put it in there. The copper would sink to the bottom, the impurities would stay on top, and after several hours of this heat in this oven, they would break open the oven, which you can see in front of you. All of the sludge, right, would come out, and in the bottom, you would have your copper. Wait to cool it off, and then you can ship it off back to Egypt, and this is where they made all of the beautiful ornaments that we find in all of the tombs that archaeologists are discovering in Egypt today. This is what made Egypt such a wealthy nation back in the day. And you can see just to the right of the gentleman, you can see where my cursor is, if you can see that. You can actually see where some of the smelting took place, where one of the factories were. And from a distance, you can see all the black stone all around it. That is all of the waste product. I think it's called sludge. Forgot the word. But anyways, all of the excess, non-copper elements of the ore, they would just leave it there because it was worthless. And here you can just see tons and tons and tons of all of this. And of course, this is an Egyptian a mine that existed for hundreds and hundreds of years during the Egyptian Empire. And this is an Egyptian temple with a altar, and there was hieroglyphics found here, and a statue of Hathor, the cat god. And you can come here and just feast your eyes upon the history, but you can't lose sight of the amazing, beautiful geology that exists there as well. One of my favorite places. Okay, I can see we're moving along here in time. I do have a video that I was going to show, but I'm going to skip it. And in the letter that you guys will all be receiving this week from myself, I'll have information on how to access these videos, a whole half-hour episode just on Tim the Park, and also a half-hour episode on this awesome place. Anybody know where we are there? The edge of the world. Doesn't look like you're looking at some alien landscape. I mean, it's just an epic, epic place. One of my favorite places. I've actually hiked across the desert a number of times. I did what's known as Shvil Yisrael. It's the Israel Trail. It's about 1,000 kilometers, roughly about 700 miles long, and we traversed the Machteshim, the Machtesh. And what we're looking at there is called Machtesh Ramon. Machtesh is a Hebrew word, but it's also an international word, because what we are looking at right there is a crater, kind of. A crater is formed by some type of impact. This is an erosion crater. It's actually a mountain that's been hollowed out, and you really can't get a good sense of how deep this crater is. But this scene here of a hiker, I hiked that, by the way, that little ridge. That scene of that hiker right there is in the Machtesh. It's in the Machtesh, what this guy sitting on the edge of the world is looking at. And in that Machtesh, you can see right here, if you see my cursor, I'm circling around a black mountain, not all the black mountains, but that black mountain. Some of those are extinct volcanoes. Okay, so how is this Machtesh formed? Well, first of all, you also have a town at the edge of the crater called Mitzpe Ramon, the overlook of the Ramon crater. And there's about 5,000 people who live there. I wouldn't call it a wealthy place by any stretch of the imagination, but the people there are beautiful, wonderful, and kind, and have an appreciation for clean air. and nature. And of course you have, oh, finally I'm able to zoom in. You have the beautiful, amazing, exclusive, uber expensive, but amazingly awesome hotel called Bereshit. I've stayed there a number of times. In fact, I just recently took my family there before the whole Corona pandemic in January. And then here is a road down into the Machtesh. And this road was originally built by David Ben-Gurion, a switchback. All of his advisors said, David, you're crazy. You're crazy, right? They all had a Yiddish accent. You're crazy. They said, why are you going to build a road here? It's impossible. And he says, we must connect the center of Israel with our only port to Asia, to the city of Eilat. This is a must. And he demanded they do it, and they figured it out, and they did it. And boom, we have a road now. This is the original road to Eilat before the main road, which is at Highway 90 that also runs past the Dead Sea. But if you don't want to hike down there and see some of the most beautiful and amazing, look at this little canyon with water in it too. After the rainy season, you can go there and you can, soak yourself in the water. You can always take a Jeep tour and head on down there. And I will show you the video of the Jeep tour because that's only about 20 seconds, not right this second. It's only about 20 seconds. But what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about how this crater was formed. I'm going to do it in two ways. One is right here, right now, talking to, and another is I'm going to show you a very, very quick video that I made a little while ago. I hope the quality is okay, but it'll illustrate what I am talking about. It doesn't come from my TV show, so it's the quality is not so great, but basically most rock in this world, sedimentary rock, is formed in oceans. Shallow oceans, up to 2 kilometers. Deep oceans, 4 kilometers. Depending on the depth of the ocean, depends on the type of rock and how dense the rock is. 120 million years ago, you had a huge ocean all over Israel, or not all over it, but where Mitzpeh Ramon is located, and it formed a layer of limestone. And that layer of limestone, as the water receded and the waves started to hit it, well, what do you think happened? The top of the limestone eroded, and underneath you had even older stone, sandstone. Well, due to earthquakes in this area and a tilt in the land, the erosion started to take everything from inside the mountain out. And so it hollowed out the mountain, which means the stone at the bottom, right? Because stone is layered, right? Layer upon layer. And the stone at the top where the city was, that's 120 million years old. That's the limestone. That's the cap, the top layer. At the bottom, you're talking about stones that are 400 million years old, right? We're talking like pre-dinosaur. So geologists and fossil finders come here in order to study the stones that date back to the days of creation, right? Really something unbelievable. So I'm gonna go ahead now and share my screen once again. And let me just show you this picture before we do that again. Where is it? There it is. So there's the city. That what it's sitting on, that's the limestone. That's actually the top of the mountain. And believe it or not, this isn't really a city. It's a town. It's very small. Safed, up in the north where all the art galleries are, they claim to be the highest city in Israel, and they are because they're a city, but this is even higher than Sfat. It snows there sometimes in the wintertime. It's on top of a large mountain, as I said, that was hollowed out. So let me now bring you on over here. Oh, I forgot to even talk about all that. That's okay. We're running out of time anyhow. That's Timna. Go, oops, get out of there. How do I get rid of you? Can't see it now. Okay, hold on one second. Here we go. All right, here we go. So sorry, I'm getting it literally off of my Facebook. I had a hard time taking off some of my files and moving over. I'm using my wife's computer. A moment. But there we go. And here is the formation of the Machtesh.
What's up, everybody? David Sussman, Israel Tours here, back better than ever. And the reason why is that I'm in one of Israel's...
What just happened? Hold on, so sorry. Okay, maybe it doesn't want me to do it. That's okay. That's okay. We'll give it one more shot. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. What can you do? There we go.
What's up, everybody? David Sussman, Israel Tourist here, back better than ever. And the reason why is that I'm in one of Israel's geological wonders known as a Maktesh. This is the Yerucham Maktesh, or the Yerucham Crater. And we need to realize that all of the topography of the land of Israel was created between 80 and 120 million years ago. And here in the Negev Desert, due to all of that tectonic movement, huge mountains were formed. And here we have one of those mountains. Now, how are mountains, or how is the rock formed? Rock is formed from big oceans. And this area was covered in an ocean. It was a shallow ocean, but due to the pressure of that ocean, you had lots of limestone, very hard stone, limestone forming in this area. So I just now created a layer of limestone here on top of this mountain. Now, at the same time, massive tectonic movements that are occurring, and you have the Arava Valley, or most famous known here is the Dead Sea, the lowest place on earth, literally taking Israel and tilting it to the east. Now, as the ocean is receding and the waves are hitting the top of this mountain, just pounding it like this, you literally shave off the top due to the erosion of this mountain. It's now shifted towards the east. All of the rains for the next 80 million years is taking all of that sand. Now come closer, come closer. I want you guys to see the mountain, what's happening here. Come closer, closer, closer. As you can see that all of the innards, right, the interior of that mountain is being eroded out with just one exit towards the east, towards the Arava Valley, and being swept away. And what you have is a crater being formed from erosion. Now, this is not a canyon, because if it was a canyon, it would have been a river, and you would have had an exit point the other way. Now, what is so cool about these craters is that the top of the mountain, 120, 100 million years old, the bottom of the mountain, where we are right now, where you see all this beautiful sand around me, the colored sand, you can see the kids, just look over there, you can see the kids playing as they're collecting their colored sand over here, filling up bottles, having a great day. Now look over here, you can see is that in the bottom of these craters, and we have 5 of them here in Israel, the most famous is the Ramon crater near Mitzvah Ramon, the beautiful.
All right, so now I hope that gave you a little bit of a better idea of how that was formed. And we are going to leave some, I'm happy to stay as long as you guys are. I'll show you this last little short clip of just some of the beauty here in the Maktesh. Hold on, that's not it. And then if you guys really want to stay longer, I'll show you that little clip too, because near Rosh Hanikra, they found a factory in which they produce techelet, which is the blue string that we.
This is incredible, leaning over the crater like this, hanging on for dear life to this rope, and looking hundreds of feet down. Let's go.
Lots of adventure. When times are good, you guys are able to travel again. You guys can all come here and bring your grandchildren, make a big family outing. Nobody will get bored, I promise you that. And the great part about it is while you're doing all of this adventures, you're sprinkling in all of our heritage and all of our history. Let's fast forward now. I'll just show you this last little bit. What is it? 17, 10, 26. All right. I know I'm going a little over time there, Gisele, but it's just so beautiful, and just so you guys get an idea of all the wonderful stuff that you can do here. Deep tours. You don't need to go hiking to enjoy the incredible, beautiful nature. You go in your own personal, beautiful Jeep. So I hope you guys enjoyed some of the beautiful pictures and the slides and the videos, and that you learned a little something and hopefully are inspired even greater than you were, because I know you were, because here you all are, 46 of you are all here, or at least computers, probably even double that. enjoying this presentation. So
David, thank you so much for this amazing,
whatever it is you'd like.
Thanks for taking us back in time and to today's beauty of Israel. So thank you so much. For some of you who still want to stay on for a couple questions, I just got a couple questions for you, David, and then we can wrap up because maybe it's lunchtime for most of us. Just tell us a little bit about what Israel looks like right now, especially the hotel that, you know, we see the images of a crowded, beautiful space with tons of people shoulder to shoulder. What it's looking like now?
Great question, Gisele. So if you guys followed Israeli news, and I suggest that you do, as you scroll through all of your different, you know, websites, go to JPost or Times of Israel. Israel is not a free nation as like America, right? America, it's very hard, I believe, to contain the coronavirus because it's built on, hey, you can't tell me what to do. In Israel, when the government tells you what to do, you do it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it because your civil rights aren't the same as they are in America. You can be arrested here, put into jail for a few days before even speaking to your lawyer. I mean, it's not the same as in America. So they put a lockdown on the country and they closed the schools down. And there was police at the exit of our neighborhood. And we weren't allowed to leave our neighborhood unless we were going to the pharmacy or to the doctors or to the supermarket. And then, you know, they were checking for masks. And I mean, it was strict as strict can be. And we had our huge blow up of Corona. And then the numbers went down and it appeared as though, oh, maybe we got this thing beat. But of course, we are human and we become restless. And you don't have to stay here if you don't want to. You want to go upstairs?
Here.
This is my son Binyamin right here. He always likes to come on when I'm doing these, see all the people. So anyway, people became restless and schools are now open. My child here, Binyamin, and his twin sister is back in school. And people are allowed to travel. And so I've been traveling a lot and going to sites and trying to produce some video content. And you can go to the Kotel, and I actually have a video on my Facebook too of it. They're practicing social distancing. Many people are wearing masks, not everybody. It's been, you know, a lot of people are loosening up on that and they're not as strict with people wearing the mask, although they, I think, are going to reintroduce restrictions because there's been another sort of flame up, if you will, because of the loosened restrictions, I think, and everybody being back in school. It just takes one person to affect an entire school and affect a community. So we've had a couple of that happen here in Israel. So you go down there and Yom Yerushalayim, right? Yom Ha'atzmaut, Shavuot. It's usually packed. You're shoulder to shoulder. There's stickers on the ground with footprints on it to make sure that everybody stays 6 feet apart. So when you go there, it's subdued. There's blocked off like sections. Like here's a prayer section. Here's a prayer section. Here's a prayer section. Each prayer section can only have one minion, one prayer circle. And that's what it's like. But hey, we'll take it to be able to put our hands on those holy stones. Once again, we're very, very grateful for that. So we do trust our government. We do think that they've done a fairly good job with the crisis. Although I'm out of work, and that is not fun. But hey, what can we do? Can't hear you, Gisele. Can't hear you.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll get to see you again soon in Israel and we resume things and starting bringing our groups back to the homeland. One more question before we go. Someone is asking about Ma'arat HaMachpelah. I'm sorry about the spelling.
The Tomb of the Patriarchs.
Is it reopened?
Yes, pretty much the entire country is reopened. Our restaurants reopened. I think some cafes are, and I think all the restaurants are due to open on the 3rd, which is tomorrow. So I think tomorrow is when they said the restaurants can open up. I know the restaurants that I work with, bringing groups to, are opening up because I've gotten invites from everybody saying, come, you know, like, please come. They've been out of work for 3 months already as well. So Ma'arat HaMachpelah is open. I live 20 minutes away from there. I went there last week, filled a bunch of content, and every day this week on my Facebook, David at David Sussman, or David Sussman Israel Tours. Look me up on Facebook. I posted the video. We're operating the third episode, and I'm doing big tours of Hebron as well, so you can see what it looks like today. I think my son is impressed with your cat, Gisele.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, good.
I'm sorry. So
He's not
again,
used to seeing cats in houses, only in trash bins.
Just again to share your website with everyone, it's David Sussman, IsraelTours.com. If you are a Facebook user, look him up, David Sussman. There are beautiful images and videos and photos. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. We're happy that you spent this hour with us. If you're looking for more virtual programs from us, go to jfedsrq.org/events. Again, have a wonderful day, David. Lehitraot.
Thanks for the opportunity, Gisele, and we'll see you all. Shalom.